Okay, I've just asked if I'm talking about money too much and how much. Sorry guys, but I'm really trying to emphasise this. It's too easy to control us with money. Had to get it out again. Yeah, so production, recycling, it's all out there. All these things I talk about you can check out. We can just about recycle everything. And as I say, it's not just about the rubbish in the terms of household rubbish like glass bottles, milk, glass bottles, plastic. It's also about things like furniture, TVs that are just thrown away because I've got a new one. Let's start looking into this. Let's start. People are doing it anyway. I'm not talking about anything that's not being done. As I say, I used to do 75% of my stuff. Okay, so shall we move along to number 8? I think it is. Let's just check. No,
9.
no, number 9. Number 9. Which is, it's a sort of recycling thing again, but it's to do with 9. Where's my glasses? Sorry guys, my eyes are going. I hate to see it. Maybe I should recycle them.
Your glasses are there.
Yeah, it's okay, I didn't need them. So, housing and conversion of empty buildings. This one, you squatters have made me come up with this and made me think about this. Thank you very much. Because, so what I'd like to talk about is housing and conversion of empty buildings into useful buildings. As I mentioned earlier about John Apsos, who's doing the vertical growing, he specifically targets office buildings because there are so many of them. Not only can we make vertical gardens with them, we can make schools, I mentioned that earlier, we can make housing for people. Because seriously guys, there is enough buildings already to house everybody. Everybody. We're just not using them because the big companies buy a building, I know this for a fact, they'll buy a building and they'll leave it until it becomes financially viable to use the building. And that could take years. Years and years and years. And yet everywhere I go, I see homelessness. I haven't had a home in such a long time, but I've never really considered myself homeless because I consider the world as my home, which goes back to the world citizen mentality. But the powers that be would consider me homeless. Rubbish. That's them trying to put their philosophy and their thoughts into my life. I ain't having it anymore. I'm not homeless. I've got an entire planet that I can go live anywhere in. I don't need a building to have a home. I really don't. I can use a tent. I can build one out of... There's so many people out there who are building houses from just what's around them. In the woods, in open land. This is where all the, a lot of the self-sustaining communities, a lot of the stuff they use to build their houses in these places is recycled things. There's a great house in, I think it's America, was it you telling me about this, Alice, that was made from plastic bottles? Mm-hmm. Plastic bottles? How many did you say there was in the house? 13,000 or something? But somebody's built a house using plastic bottles that is strong, warm, and because you can, if you've got a plastic bottle, I don't know if you squash it, if you leave it open, but let's use them. Let's make buildings out of them, as I say, let's make land out of them. Let's use these things that we've got in the world and convert them into useful things, houses, and let's use the empty buildings that are all out there and use them for our benefit instead of the big companies having them. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, the only way these people get these buildings is on our sweat, our blood and our labour. Because they're not going to build them. No, we've got to do it. So we're building buildings for these people and they're using them for their own benefit, not for the benefit of humanity. So stop them. Take the buildings back. Squatters, top group of people, keep it up. Everywhere. You're doing it all over the place. Even though it's illegal, we're still doing it, and we're finding that if we take a building over in Holland, since 2010, that when they made it illegal, for, I don't know, about a year they were getting everything the wrong way, and that is they were kicking people out pretty quickly. At some point last year, they sort of, with a lot of buildings, went back to the old system, which was, you can't empty a building immediately. The people who own the building have to have probable cause. Yeah? So we're back to the system where you get at least 2 to 3 months out of each building that we take off. And all they have to do then, if they get the building back, is just shove somebody in and say, call them anti-squatters, to stop squatters going in. You know, and these anti-squat buildings, you can't do anything in them. You sign a contract, I know because I've lived in one, you sign a contract where if you want somebody to stay with you, you have to get in touch with them and say, can I have somebody stay with me? They come to your house once a week with a key, so even if you're not in the house, they just go in the house. You know, think about these things, these anti-crackers and anti-squatters, and know that they're not being given a nice house for a really cheap price, because it might not cost much, but there's a load of rules, regulations that you have to abide by. And if they don't think you are, all they have to do is give you 2 weeks notice and you're out there. So let's just do it, let's just take the buildings back, let's create schools for ourselves, let's create vertical growing situations, the information's out there, and I know that in just about every community there are people who know about these things, who know how to grow foods, who know a little bit about vertical growing. So let's do it. And as I say, this goes back in line with the ability to actually create solar panels. Then we take the energy back as well. So you can take a building, make solar panels, put them on the roof, put them wherever you can get them. I've heard this thing that at some stage in the future, a lot of buildings are actually going to have solar panels all over them, so that they become an energy source themselves. Because let's be honest, the sun just throws loads of energy at us, and we've got ways of collecting it now. And I did hear this thing, you can correct me if I'm wrong because it was a while back, but if we build a solar panel 1 kilometre long, half a kilometre wide, put it above the atmosphere, within a day we can get enough energy to supply the world for 10,000 years, I think it was. As I said, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but I know it's quite a large figure. And the only reason we aren't doing it is because we can't afford it. Rubbish. These big companies can afford to do it, but it's not financially viable for them to give us energy for the next 1,000 years in one day. Whatever, 10,000 years in one day. So check that one out and let me know if I'm wrong. I'd like to know myself, because I want to get this. So exactly right. So that everything I say is correct. So that's, for the housing and that, that's a really small thing because it's a really easy one to talk about. All these things I talk about have been done. John Apsos in Amsterdam is taking off his buildings and creating vertical gardens. Squatters are already taking buildings over and creating an education system there. It's called workshops, work groups, where you go and you can learn about certain things. They talk about all self-sufficiency, growing your own food. Then they go into less useful things in the terms of how you survive, but useful in knowledge about how governments work, why the system's not working, and so on and so forth. So these things have all been done. It's just, it's only a small group at the moment. What I'd like to see is this sort of thing's being done everywhere. Everywhere. Because, I'll say it one more time for you guys, your governments are not working for you, they're working for the banks. Okay? Okay? The governments are not working for you. I was going to make this the last point, but I'm going to talk about another thing after this, which is the final step in my whole idea, which is creating a resource-based society. Yeah, everything, you notice everything I've said, the only thing that stopped it is money, 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 money. So that's why I've done this, because I want to show you that we can do these things because they're being done. Venus Project, Jacques Fresco, absolutely amazing, amazing man. He's been trying to build a city of the future since back I think he said he started in the 1920s. I highly recommend you watch the Venus Project. Highly recommend it, because a lot of the things that he's come up with over the years have started to be used. And I'll give you a few examples, because I wrote some down last night. Houses that can be mass produced. There are now systems that we've got in the world, and once again I know this because I've seen them, where you can mass fabricate houses. All you do, I'm not sure how it works, but you just have a certain mould and you mass produce the pieces, and I think he did an house in 1940 something called the Trend House. Absolutely massive publicity about this in America. You can, as I say, it's on the Venus Project, where he built a house in hours. In the 40s, early 50s, he actually built a full house in hours because the part were mass produced. So we've had that system since then. But because he couldn't get the finance to keep it up, it just fell apart for him. Another one that he talked about was cars that stop before they hit people without you using or building or anything, without you actually touching the brakes. I saw this
Again, please.
a car that will stop by itself before it's an object or a person. That's a better way of describing it. A car that stops before it hits something. Because it has